Bloomberg has learned that Olaf Scholz's Social Democrats and opposition lawmakers reached an agreement, finally, to hold a federal election on February 23rd. Now, for more, let's bring in Bloomberg's Oliver Crook in Berlin. So, Oliver, tell us a little bit more about the timing. I know Olaf Scholz wanted to delay it, but actually the opposition has been trying to get it as soon as possible.
Yeah, Francine, it's been a huge debate. It's been the big back and forth for the last week, basically, between Friedrich Merz, the head of the CDU, and Olaf Scholz, the Chancellor and head of the SPD, about when they should hold the election. They finally have struck an agreement. We have the federal election on February the 23rd. There were a lot of concerns. Merz was saying that basically Scholz was just trying to hang on to power for longer, trying to sort of gain political points going into the election. Olaf Scholz, for his part, was saying that basically, no, we need to be prepared to have this election. Francine, there was concerns there wouldn't be enough paper for the ballots to actually hold the voting. So this was going to be all the sort of things that were going to be discussed. But now it seems that they have been satisfied with the fact that Germany will, in fact, be prepared to hold this election and will head to the polls on February the 23rd.
So what are the polls actually saying?
Yeah, so you can just see them on the screen there. What we've seen, that was the first poll that we've actually seen since the vote was called. So this is sort of a meaningful change in some of the sort of allegiances that we saw. We basically saw all of the mainstream parties, as you can probably see there on the board, going up and gaining a little bit of points ever since the government collapsed. This means that basically a lot of German voters have moved away from some of the smaller parties in favor of some of the larger parties to potentially be able to gain some power in this next government. I will sort of say what is interesting is what we've seen here is obviously the CDU has been leading for a long time in the polls, Merkel's traditional party. What is interesting is you see there the AfD, the Alternative for Deutschland, the far-right group, which is basically heading into this federal election with the strongest support it has ever had in going into any election ever. It is at about 20%. That is just shy of the 22% high watermark that they have that they've enjoyed in the past. And really, if you look at the current coalition, SPD, the Greens, the FDP, they're all doing a lot poorly, much worse than they did going into 2021. So we're going to sort of look at some interesting calculus of who's going to be able to work together. The baseline sort of assumption right now, and again, this is still very early in this cycle, is you could potentially form a government between the CDU and the SPD grand coalition, which is what you had in the last term of Merkel when she was Chancellor and Olaf Scholz back then was finance minister.
Ollie, what are the key issues that people will actually vote on?
Yeah, I mean, the reason that this government collapsed was because of the disagreement of basically how to fix Germany's economic problems. And those economic problems we've been talking about for many, many months, if not for many, many years. There's questions about the sort of the future of industry, energy prices, and really the CDU is going to go with their sort of classical solution to problems, which is to cut taxes, to cut back the welfare state. Olaf Scholz is, again, very sort of opposed to that. Where I think, Francine, the debate will get interesting is around the debt brake. And the debt brake is the reason that basically the German government collapsed, because the Greens and Olaf Scholz said, unless we sort of start being more flexible about the amount of money that Germany can borrow in order to fix its considerable economic problems, there will be no progress, and this economy is in big trouble. The question will be now, the CDU, which has a self-proclaimed fetish for the debt brake and for zero debt, will they be able to, because of the urgency of the problems facing Germany, will they be able to get into a position where they are beginning to think about reforming the debt brake? That is going to be the key issue going into this election.